Hello, everybody. This is Jacob Jans with Writing Launch. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes. We're going to make sure everybody has a chance to show up. It's great to see so many people here from around the world. I just saw someone from Toronto. I'm in Toronto too. Ian's in Ohio. Yeah, so we're just going to wait a minute to let everyone show up. Say hello in the chat if you want to so we can see where you're from. It's always nice to see where people are from around the world. So it's good to see everyone here. Today, Ian is going to be presenting on how to build a thriving and successful freelance writing career from scratch. So I'm excited to see that presentation. Hello, Margaret and Angelica, right, Pat and Karen Kamar. Karen, I think I recognize your name, and you just signed up for Writing Launch, but I think that is what happened. Yeah, it's good to see that you're here. And hello, Adriana. I actually recognize a lot of the names of the people here. That's wonderful. So I'd say it is. We should get started now. So today, Ian Chandler will be presenting how to start a freelance writing career, and really how to grow a freelance writing career so that it is successful and thriving and something that can sustain you for the long term. I know so many freelance writers out there, or so many people who are interested in freelance writing, they don't know how to get started, but they know they want to get paid to write, and they know other people are out there just doing it and earning their livings quietly and successfully. I know Ian, he actually earns his living working for Writing Launch and also as a freelance writer. And I recently asked him what would happen if for some reason Writing Launch no longer paid any of his bills. And he said, well, I would get more freelance writing clients. I'm not worried about that at all. So that's what we want for everyone who works with us at Writing Launch, is the ability to just choose when to make money as a writer, and then to be able to go out and do that. And yes, it does take time to do that, and it's a process. But today, Ian is going to be showing you what that process is and how you can get started on the process of becoming a successful freelance writer for the long term. So I'm going to pass it over to Ian, and I'm excited to hear what he has to say today.
Thank you, Jacob. Yeah, like he said, today is going to be a really exciting presentation on how to develop a successful freelance writing career. And like Jacob said, it is going to take time. The stuff that I'm presenting here is it's real world advice that I've learned, the hard way over the years. This is all stuff that I picked up myself. I didn't really have anyone to teach me, show me the ropes. I didn't have anyone to help me navigate through the beginning of my career. And so I'm hoping that I can do that for you. So even if you're, brand new to freelance writing, if you're just thinking about it, considering it, or if you're a little along the way and you're just wanting to know how to get to the next step or how to make it a really sustainable living, either way, I think you're going to come away with some good insights today. And so over the next, probably 45 minutes or so, I'll be presenting on various facets of freelance writing. I'm really excited to share it. But if you have questions, you can always ask them in the chat, and then we'll have a Q&A section at the end where we'll get to as many questions as we can. And then, of course, you can always email us if the question does not get answered. But with that in mind, let me go ahead and kickstart this presentation. And yeah, awesome. Yeah, so like Jacob said, this is about how to grow a successful freelance writing career from scratch. And the first thing that I want to kind of underscore is that freelance writing is ultimately a business. And I think thinking about it that way is crucial, because a lot of freelancers go into it just thinking that they can sort of wing it, and they don't have to have like a really solid strategy. And the truth is that if you want to succeed at freelance writing, you will need a pretty good strategy. You need to plan things out beforehand, or at least have an idea of what your goals are. So thinking like a business person is really, really beneficial when it comes to setting up your freelance writing career. So if you're starting out, or if you've been in freelance writing for a while, if you've been pitching a couple places here and there, and you don't yet have a strategy, and you're not really thinking of it in these business-like terms, I would highly recommend doing that. And I just wanted to start out by saying that because I think that sort of sets the tone for everything I'm going to be sharing today. And a lot of people I are kind of adverse to thinking this way, because a lot of people kind of equate business with just thinking about, making money and selling to people no matter what. But the truth is that, freelance writing is hopefully how you want to make your livelihood. If you're interested in doing it full time, like I do, or even part time, you are going to need to think about things that, like finances and like marketing yourself, that can help you get to that point where you can make your living from freelance writing alone. And so that's what I'm going to be focused on today. And of course, running a good business ultimately means knowing what your clients want. The reason I bring this up is because it also sets the tone for how you want to think about dealing with people when it comes to freelance writing. And I'll probably end up saying this a lot throughout the webinar, but freelance writing is ultimately about sharing value. I, at least in my opinion, my kind of core mission with freelance writing is to help other people and help businesses that, need good writing done so that they can accomplish their goals, whether that's writing an advertisement for somebody so they can make money from a product that they made, or writing a resume for someone who wants to get a job, or writing a biography for someone who wants to get their name out there as an expert in something. No matter what the type of writing is, even if it's like advertising and marketing stuff, it's important to think of it in terms of how much value you can bring. And thinking about it in that term where it's value first is really, really going to help kind of decrypt a lot of the tougher aspects of freelance writing. So again, keep that in mind as we go through the webinar today, because that's a really, really crucial mindset to have. So what do you need to start a freelancing career? Well, first, like I said, you need a passion for helping people. And again, this is that value first mindset. This is the mindset you want to have when going into freelance writing, because it will kind of tie everything together. And it's really the crux of freelance writing and the crux of business as a whole. You want to make sure that you're thinking about it in these terms, because if you're not, I think it can sort of not mislead you, but it can kind of throw you off a little bit. And keeping this in mind will really, like I said, help tie everything together and give you a strategic vision for where you want to take your freelance writing. You also need the willingness to learn. This is a simple one, but it's a really big deal. You need to be able to be continually a student. And if you kind of don't learn regularly and you're not open to that, it becomes really difficult to do that and really succeed as a freelancer. You also do need a little bit of self-motivation. Freelance writing is great. And of course, one of the big benefits is that you become your own boss, but the downside to that is that you're the one who has to motivate yourself all the time. And you do have to have a certain amount of drive that comes with kind of experience, but also just a mindset. And I'll reference mindset a lot throughout this webinar, because that's what a lot of freelance writing is having the right mindset. And I think that's why a lot of freelance writers fail, is just because they're not thinking about things in the right way. So that can make all the difference. And in combination with everything that I've said, you also want to think about both your short-term and your long-term plans. If you don't have both short-term and long-term goals, it is going to be nearly impossible for you to have a forward path. It's going to be really difficult for you to set a trajectory for yourself. And I think when you're new to it, you kind of don't even know what your goals are going to be, but it helps to have any goals at all. Even if your goal is, say, getting one publication, you want to get one published article, that can be it. And that's enough to at least guide you along the path. And then you can develop new goals along the way. But it is important to just have those goals right out of the gate. Now I want to talk about finding your first jobs. How do you do that? And also kind of some specific strategies, because I didn't want to just be general when talking about this. I wanted to be really quite specific. So what I'm going to detail are some strategies for finding jobs, and we will talk about what to do if you have no experience. So if that's you, sit tight, and we'll be sure to cover that. So yeah, how do you find your first few jobs? Well, a lot of it is just looking in the right places. This is most of the battle. And when I talk to writers who are struggling to find work, this is always what I say. And usually it helps them. Because I think a lot of writers are accustomed to looking in certain places for jobs. And now a lot of this is kind of the fault of a lot of companies who push their agendas and kind of act like they're the best place to find work. And, places like content mills or freelancing platforms where they kind of act as the middleman. These kind of become the de facto job boards for would-be freelancers. The problem with these is that they're not great, and I'll talk about them a bit later. But when you're starting out, if you're looking for work, it's an endless ocean, and it becomes really overwhelming. It becomes really scary. But despite that, if you are able to kind of weed out all of the bad information and really focus on the good places to find work, then you'll have a really good time finding jobs. And generally, there are a few, I guess, criteria you can follow to make sure that you're looking in the right places. One of them is avoiding websites that post low-paying jobs. And I see this a lot on different job boards, different platforms. There are a lot of jobs that just don't pay that much. And if you want to make a living as a freelance writer, of course, you don't want to be charging, $1 million right out the gate, but you also don't want to undersell yourself. And that is one of the biggest mistakes I see beginner freelancers making. So even if you're brand new and you have no experience, you don't want to undervalue yourself, because you have the skill of writing, right? You have the ability to write content for people and for businesses. And that is a skill that people will pay for, and they'll pay good money for it. So obviously, when you're starting out, you want to kind of be tempered in how much you can make, but you also don't want to undervalue yourself. Don't sell yourself too short to the point where you're taking on these low paying jobs. And of course, it all depends on how much money you need to make for your personal situation, but that's something to keep in mind. You also want to look for writing opportunities with a low barrier to entry. And this is also really important, because when you're starting out, you don't have any experience, and especially if you don't have a degree, which you don't really need anyway. I have an English degree, and I've never used it for any of my jobs in terms of getting the job, that is. But when you're starting out, if you have no experience, if you have no portfolio, no writing samples, no anything, then you want to look for places that don't require those things, and opportunities that don't require them. And there are quite a few. You would be pretty surprised at how many opportunities there are that literally require zero, preparation, no prerequisites, no experience, whatever. They're out there for sure. It becomes a little tricky to find them, and you do have to put a lot of time into that, but it's so worth it. Like I just said, finding this can take a while, but yeah, you need to be persistent when looking for these opportunities, because it might take a little longer than you think. And when it comes to freelance writing, I try to not sugarcoat things. I try to present things in a very real way. And this is one of those moments where I just have to say, honestly, it's going to take a long time. It may take you, several weeks or even, a few months to find a good opportunity that jives with your experience and, what you want to do as a writer. But once you find those first few jobs, that's all you need to get started and, build that momentum. Now, I want to address one of the most burning questions that I'm sure a lot of you have, which is, what do I do if I don't have a portfolio? I get this question an absurd amount because it's something that's relevant to so many writers. You know, a lot of writers who are starting out obviously don't have a portfolio, but there are also writers who, you know, have been writing for a while, or, you know, they have a general goal in mind, and they understand what they want to do with freelancing, but they're just like, I don't have a portfolio. What do I do? And this is sort of, I guess, maybe a myth, you could say, in terms of thinking about the importance of a portfolio, because a lot of writers think that, okay, you know, I need a portfolio, or I need experience, I need a degree or whatever. And the truth is, you don't need any of that to start writing. You know, you want to develop experience along the way, for sure. You want to develop a portfolio, but when you're starting out, that's not what you should be focusing on. It's kind of focusing in the wrong place. You know, it's a little bit like saying, you know, oh, I need to wait for, you know, a proper this or that to get started. And it's sort of a way to procrastinate, I guess. And that's not for everybody, surely, but I think for a lot of writers, that's how it is, you know. It really can serve as a stumbling block. And so you need to be aware of the fact that you don't need a portfolio. But the question remains, if you don't have a portfolio, what do you do? Well, the good news is that the majority of clients and editors that you'll deal with really don't care about whether you have experience or a portfolio. They want someone who can write well. And this is what is crucial to understand, because the reason that, you know, different places might want you to have experience or a portfolio is to make sure that they know that you will deliver good writing to them. That's their ultimate goal. They're not just looking for someone with, you know, status or whatever. They're not just looking for someone with a nice portfolio so they can showcase it or anything like that. It's more of a security measure for them. It's a safety net. And if you can assure them that you will deliver writing that's good and that, you know, will help them achieve their goals, that's really all you need to do to kind of get your foot in the door. And this is admittedly kind of tricky. It can take a little while to develop these skills, to communicate yourself effectively, and be able to persuade clients and editors that you're the right writer for them. But this is the crux of the matter, really. So when it comes to not having a portfolio, that's really not what you should be concerned about. You know, you want to kind of cross that bridge when you get to it. If you find an opportunity that's perfect and it says, oh, you need, you know, a portfolio, or you need this many years of experience or whatever, then in that case, you might want to just keep looking. But that really won't happen as much as you think it might. So when it comes to this, keep an open mind. Don't be worried about it. Don't draw attention to it. You know, it just treat it as a non-issue, and it will usually be one. And if you just focus on, like I said, focusing on value and making sure that you're delivering the best value to the people that you're working with, that is going to make all the difference. Yeah, and generally you want to focus on your strengths, draw attention to your value. You don't need to mention that you don't have a portfolio, because it's just not of interest to the client or the editor that you're talking to. You just want to focus on helping them, and then everything else will kind of fall into place. Now, when it comes to getting started, I am of the belief that writing for publications is a fantastic way to get started. That's how I got started. That's how I really built my career early on. And it's a really flexible way of making money with freelance writing. It's not incredibly consistent, but it will really help you get your, get your career off the ground, and it will help you find those first few jobs that might otherwise be tough to get. And the process for this is really simple. You just want to look up publications in your niche, and you want to make sure that they ask for pitches. And so many publications need content. You know, it's such a regular thing nowadays to open up the content to freelancers from all around the world. And so many publications will have, you know, these pages where they're calling for pitches, or they have the writer's guidelines pages or what have you. And one note here is that you want to make sure they ask for just pitches and not entire articles up front. A lot of publications will ask you to submit an entire article for consideration. And the reason that I recommend against that is because If you write an article for one publication, it's really going to only be suitable for that publication. And if you get turned down for that article, you really just have an article that you cannot use. And so you've wasted a bunch of time. Making sure that the publication just asks for a pitch is a safety measure for yourself. And the really good part about this is that even though it seems really intimidating, and I've gotten a lot of messages from writers that who say they're scared of pitching, despite how it seems, pitching is actually really easy to learn. And basically, the more you pitch, the better you'll get at it. And that's the secret to pitching. That's sort of we have a whole 4-week course on pitching. And that's basically the secret sauce to all of it, is that just the more you do it, the better you'll get. And like I said, freelancing in this way can really help you get off the ground. This is a very easy way to get started that requires no experience, no portfolio, no anything. It just requires you to research. It does require a bit of a time commitment, but if you are okay with that and you can put the time into it, and if you can hone your research skills, it becomes a really, really good way of getting started. And this is something that you can do as you move forward. So it's not just a beginner's strategy. It's something that you can make a living from if you so desire. And along the way, I wanted to mention a few membership perks that you'll get if you sign up to be a member of Writing Launch. And connected to what I just said, the first membership perk I wanted to point out is our paid publishers database. And this is an incredible resource where we've basically taken these huge lists of different publishers, different publications, and put them all into a very easy interface for you to go through. And you can see a little screenshot of it here where it's looking at lifestyle and entertainment publications. And you can get instant access to their submission guidelines, information about how much they pay, what type of publication they are, all at your fingertips. And we have thousands of publications on here. I think we're nearing 2,000, I think. And it's just crazy. If you are looking to pitch publications, this is pretty much the definitive resource. And this is completely free to members. It's a little kind of bonus, I guess, that we provide to everybody as part of the membership. And if you sign up, this is instantly available to you. Another perk that I wanted to mention is that pitching course that I mentioned, which is the Bulletproof Pitching System. And this is a 4-week course on pitching that goes over everything. It's a really intensive course that will have you pitching. It will have you writing pitches, refining pitches, sending them out. It's designed to get you good at pitching in basically no time, and in the span of maybe 4 weeks. And by the time you finish the course, you'll have a much better understanding of what makes a pitch good, what editors look for in a pitch. You'll have experience under your belt to help you understand, your own pitching style and just some of the nuances around it. And on top of that, we have a lot of supplementary content where I critique pitches and go over different aspects of pitching. And there's actually one video where I make a pitch from scratch. So all of that stuff is also included in the membership, but I wanted to focus here on the pitching system course, because I think it's one of our strongest course offerings. And I think that if you are looking to pitch publications as a way of getting started, this is going to be a really important course for you. And I highly recommend checking it out. Okay, now I want to make a point of this, because when it comes to getting started as a freelance writer, when it comes to getting your feet off the ground, this is something that is very, very crucial. And that is, you want to avoid content mills and freelancing platforms at all costs. Now, I know there are many of you watching who are on content mills right now or on a freelancing platform, and that's probably how you're making some money right now. And this is going to be kind of a hard pill to swallow, but I really recommend stepping off those platforms today. The reason is that these mills and platforms undervalue writers so much. I've spoken to many, many writers over the years, and I have experience myself. And all of the writers that I've talked to who have been on content mills or have been on freelancing platforms, all of them said that they wish that they hadn't, that they wasted time, that it set them back. And if you really want to build a living with this, if this is what you want to do full time or part time, if you want consistency, if you want to be able to make good money as a writer, you need to avoid these like the plague. Or I guess the pandemic is for a more dated reference. But I'm talking about places like Upwork, Fiverr, Textbroker, Writer's Work, Constant Content, Scripted, Xeris, iWriter, Writer Access, all of these places you need to absolutely avoid. And I know this is kind of tough because if you're on one of these platforms or a different one and you're making money, it seems like it's reliable. It's a little bit of familiarity, it's a little bit of reliability, but you're not making that much money, and you would be shocked at how much money you can make. When I stepped off the content or the freelancing platform I was on, I think I upped my rate like 5 times. It was crazy. And I just instantly started making so much more money in much less time. And I was like, okay, I could do this for a living. And there was a stretch when I was on one of these platforms and I was starting out and I had been on it for maybe, 6 to 9 months or something like that. And I was really financially struggling. I was having to borrow money from my parents. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it as a writer. It was only when I stepped down from this platform and started looking for jobs on my own, started looking for publications. It was only then that I started making the kind of money that I would need to make a living off of. And I can confidently say if I had stayed on these platforms, I would not be where I am today. So with all that in mind, I highly encourage you to get off these platforms and avoid them at all costs. It's never worth it. And it will pretty much only set you back. So yeah, I hope that you take that to heart. Cause again, that's, I think one of the more important messages in this webinar. Now, that said, we've talked about, getting your first few jobs. We've talked about different strategies for finding work. We've talked about places to avoid. One question that you might have is, well, how do you get to the next level? Because when you are starting out in and maybe the first year or two, or even like the first 6 months, really, there is sort of this bundle of questions that comes up where you're just thinking about, okay, where am I going to be in 6 months, in a year, in 5 years? What kind of writing jobs am I going to take on? How am I going to support myself financially and grow my income? There are all these questions. And it's like, how do you even start going about that? And that conversation then becomes turning freelancing into a career, right? More so than just something that you do maybe on the weekends or after your main job or whatever. If we're talking about turning freelancing into a career, then there's a specific set of things that we need to talk about. One of them is defining your goals. And I mentioned this at the outset where I talked about how goal setting is crucial. And, you'll see this a lot in pretty much every book on productivity or career building in the world. It's kind of cliche at this point, and it might sound like it's just hollow advice, but it's really, really, really important because if you don't set goals, you'll have no idea of where you want to go. So many times I see writers who are struggling and then I say, okay, well, what are your goals? And they'll say, I don't really know. I don't have any goals right now. And that lack of goal setting is really holding them back. So defining goals and being aware of specific tangible goals is really, really important. You want to create goals that you can easily track and measure. In other words, you want to create goals that you'll know whether you accomplish them or not. You don't want to have these vague goals that are just like, become a professional writer, because, what does that mean? That means different things for different people. There's no, metric to decide whether you're a professional or not. Whereas maybe a goal of getting 10 publications is, that's a much more concrete goal. You can track that. Once you hit that number of 10, you can say, okay, I've accomplished that goal. Those are the kind of goals that you want to be able to track, to set so you can track and measure them. And some questions that you might want to think about are, for example, how much money do you need to make, whether you want to do it part-time or full-time? How much time can you dedicate to writing? What does your workload look like? And what kind of writing can you support with that workload and with that amount of time that you can put in? Questions like these are really important to ask when you're setting yourself goals. You also want to think about the long term, which is kind of tricky to do, especially when you're starting out. I know for maybe the first year that I was a writer, I really didn't think about the long term. And I think a lot of newer writers don't because they're so hyper focused on just getting the next job, right? They're just going from job to job. It's kind of the freelance equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck. And it becomes just a game of getting the next job and you get tunnel vision. But even at that point, when you're struggling to find work, it's critical to think about the long term because short-sightedness can really, really harm a budding writing career. And this goes back to the goal setting stuff. It's, you need to have a good idea of the general trajectory of what you want to do. It can be as simple as saying, okay, I want to be able to write full time in 2 years. I want to be able to make my living exclusively from freelance writing. It can be something as simple as that, or it can be as complex as a big goal with a bunch of kind of sub goals that you can track and measure using different metrics. But the point remains, you want to think about the long term and not just focus on the short term. And some questions to ask yourself in this vein might be, how can I consistently deliver value and results? Again, we're talking about, having value first. That's sort of the center of freelance writing. And what does that mean for me and my clients? What types of value can you provide? Look at the different people that you're working with, the different companies you're working with, and ask yourself, okay, how can I deliver value to this company? Even if you're just looking at a job posting, you want to think about it then too. Before you even send a pitch or an outreach message or anything like that, you want to think about, okay, how can I help this person or this company in a specific way? What tangible value will I be able to give them? What results will I help them accomplish? And what does that mean for each specific client or editor? Or publication rather. And how can you become someone's number one problem solver? You want to get to the point with a client where, when someone says writing, they think of you. That's the kind of point you want to get to. So it then becomes, okay, how can you get to that point where you're constantly helping people enough to, get their good graces, but also build a long-term working relationship with them? How can you ensure that? How can you find sustainable long-term writing jobs that will provide a steady income? What types of jobs like that exist in your niche and how can you get them? These two questions are incredibly crucial because when we're talking about building a thriving freelance career, we're talking about sustainability, in the long term, because if you focus on work that is not sustainable, you will burn out sooner than later. And I did that. I was focused so much on, getting short-term jobs, and I didn't think about getting, long-term jobs. And it really set me back. Maybe a couple of years, it was really bad. Because I didn't take the time to think about, okay, I need a long-term job that's going to regularly bring in an income for me. I was just thinking I need to just get work. I was so focused on, just getting this job and that job and small jobs here and there, almost like the equivalent of pocket change almost. At some point, especially early on. But as I continued, I developed a greater acuity for long-term focus. And then that's when things really started to change. That's when I started getting, a more consistent income, when I started getting the kind of money that I make now. And yeah, you want to think about this as early on as possible, because this is going to be one of the, guiding northern lights for your career. Where do you want to be in a year from now? What about in 5 years? Even 6 months, maybe, or even 3 months, or even a month from now. You want to have an idea of a general idea of what you want to do and where you want to be at any given point. And these can change over time, obviously, and your goals may differ as you progress as a writer, but it remains that you want to at least think about this stuff. And when talking about all these questions, something I wanted to point out as another membership perk is our members only Zoom meetings that we've started doing. And it's been a great place for people to ask questions and get those answered. And we've been able to, as a group, kind of work through a lot of these questions And we hold these pretty regularly. There are different kind of themes, and yeah, it's a great place to come and ask questions, discuss problems that you're having, get advice from both us and fellow writers. And we're really excited about the future of these because we're kind of developing these and refining them. And it's going to be really exciting to see the future of this. So if you join up as a member, even if just for the free month, you'll be able to attend these Zoom meetings and hopefully get not only your questions answered, but just gain new insights into freelance writing as a whole. And we found that these are really helpful for people who are kind of stuck and need personalized advice, which is something that would, cost a lot more elsewhere. But we're more than happy to do these meetings. And yeah, so if you join up, you'll get access to these and as well as previous recordings of certain meetings, I think. But yeah, that's one of the perks that I'm really excited about. Next to talk about is the grind of freelance writing, because one thing, again, that I want to kind of underscore here is that freelance writing is a process. It's going to take a long time. It is something that you have to work at. It's not something that comes incredibly easily, but it is really rewarding. But I wanted to talk about the grind of freelance writing and sort of talking about consistency, because it's one of the key aspects of developing a thriving freelance writing career. And that's another kind of cardinal mistake I tend to see with a lot of writers, is that they're just inconsistent. I'll ask, or someone will come to me and say, "Oh, I'm having trouble. I'm really not getting the kind of jobs I want. I'm not where I want to be." And so I'll ask them, "Okay, well, what are you doing right now?" And they'll kind of say, "Well, not much." And it's sort of a case of you get out what you put into it. And consistency is the thread that you want to run through all of the different endeavors that you take upon yourself. And really, the only difference between success and failure is consistency. If you look at the most successful people in the world, if you look at their kind of origin stories, you'll see that they were consistently working and hustling to make things happen. They were working pretty much nonstop to make sure that they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. And freelancing is no different. You need to build in consistency. And if you can be consistent, you will find yourself succeeding sooner or later. It's not going to be overnight, because nothing is. But if you prioritize consistency and can build that into your workflow, sooner or later, you will see the fruits of your labor. And again, this takes time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. It's not going to happen in a week or maybe even a month or even several months. It takes a while to build that momentum and get all of the experience and opportunities necessary to have a thriving freelancing career. But that's pretty much with every career. You don't start out at the top, you start out at the bottom and work your way up. And that's the same with writing. And of course, consistency is still crucial for that. One note I wanted to make here is that you shouldn't change approaches the minute something doesn't work. This is something I see a lot. A lot of writers will kind of be quite frantic in their focus, and if something doesn't work, they'll just immediately pivot to something else. And you want to give it some time. If an approach is not giving you results over time, then you can pivot. But you want to give it a fair chance. If let's say you pitch 10 publications and you get a no from all of them, or you just don't hear back, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't pitch more. It just means you need to keep trying. If you're getting to the point where you sent out like 300 pitches and you still got nothing back, at that time, you want to, look at your strategy and say, okay, what am I doing that needs improved here? What do I need to be changing? But you do want to give it a little bit of time, because with freelancing, a lot of it is just about networking, building opportunities, learning along the way. It's a lot of learning by doing. So you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to just let these things run their course. Now, here's a question I want you all to think about, and that is, what is your role as a content writer? And this goes back to the idea of value. What value are you providing as a writer, as somebody who creates content for other people? What are you actually doing? What is the importance of your role? And in short, it is to provide helpful and valuable content. That's sort of the mantra of freelance writing. And something I wanted to mention here, because we often get messages from a lot of people who see freelance writing as almost an extension of creative writing. They see that as the same type of writing, or as having similar goals. And really, when it comes to freelance writing, when it comes to writing content for other people, it's not about sharing a personal message. It's about helping others. And it's a fantastic way of helping others. I've been blessed enough to work with a lot of great people and a lot of great companies in my time as a writer and help them succeed. And, it's really, really, impactful when you see someone succeed that you helped, personally. And that kind of relationship can really grow into something quite meaningful. But when it comes to actually writing the content and sort of your role as a writer, it's about helping your client. It's about helping the editor whose publication you're working for or pitching to. And when it comes to the actual composition of the content, you want to keep that in mind as well. You want to think about not what can you share, but how can you help the other person, and how can you provide value to the clients and editors you work with. Again, value first. The short answer here is that you want to create content that's going to help them achieve their goals. What that means for each client and each editor is going to differ, obviously, but going back to the questions section, this is one question you want to ask yourself. What kind of content is going to help this client achieve their goals? How can I help this person succeed? Those are the kinds of questions you want to be asking yourself. And how can you write the best possible content to help the most people? And like I said, freelance writing is spectacular at this. It's amazing the impact you can have as a writer. For example, if you write one article and it gets even like 100 hits or 100 views, if your article helps those people, you've helped 100 people, which is something that you really can't do on a day-to-day basis. Writers kind of have a unique ability to do that in only a way that, like popular figures really can. So, a lot of the articles that I've written have been read by thousands and thousands of people, and, it's helped them in some way. And as a writer, that is your goal, to provide value and ultimately help people, because, value is about helping people. So these are the kinds of things you want to be thinking about. And again, this goes back to mindset. If you develop this mindset early on of how can I help, how can I add value, that is going to make all the difference. And it's really going to set you on a good, straightforward path to growing your career and being able to make a thriving career out of writing. And something else I wanted to mention on this note is that writing content to help people is usually about curating and presenting valuable information that will improve your readers' lives in some way. Because when you're writing anything, it doesn't matter what it is, in a freelance writing context, that is, your goal is essentially to, assemble information and present it in a helpful way, whether that's a how-to guide or a review or an opinion piece or a feature article, whatever it is. Ad copy, whatever it is. It's all about assembling the right information, presenting it in a helpful way, and making sure that package is valuable. So yeah, that is going to conclude the main educational section of the webinar. I'd love to open the floor to some questions now. We'll get to as many as we can. If we don't get to your question, you can always email us. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and let's get some questions in. All right. So let me see here.
So Ian, we thank you for the presentation. That was great. If anyone has any questions, you can post them in the chat right now. I've been reading the chat, and I've taken some notes. So I will start addressing some of them right now. And one of them was, how do you know if you're a good writer? And I think that's a really interesting question, because it gets to that idea of mindset. And in my experience, like the experienced freelance writers, they don't worry about that. They worry about providing value, like you were talking about. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing that I say to a lot of people who are kind of struggling is that, when I started out as a freelance writer, I was so in need of money at that point. I had to pay bills that I couldn't think about questions like that. I just had to kind of blindly trust the process and just keep working at it. I had to keep grinding. And that's a lot of, how I got successful was just by repeating that process over and over. And, when it comes to questions like that, and that's sort of why I always try to make the distinction between freelance writing and creative writing, is because if you're passionate about something, chances are you're going to have the drive to be good at that thing. If you were a plumber, I'm not sure that there are a lot of plumbers out there saying, oh, am I a good plumber? They know the basics of their trade, they develop experience, and they go out and do that. And it's no different with writing. Writing seems different because it's sort of this more, it can be a more intangible thing, and it comes down to you writing something. But again, with, like Jacob said, if you focus on providing value and just kind of learn as you go and just keep doing things, you're going to be able to become a good writer, whether or not you started out as one. And I think it's all about just researching, studying other writing, honing your skills. It's a lot of skills that come with time, and there's really no shortcut for that. But yeah, like Jacob said, that just it's one of those questions you don't want to worry about too much, because that can really set you back, and that can create an inner dialogue where you think, oh, I'm not good enough to do this or that. Or you look at a job posting and you say, oh, I could never get that job. I've gotten some pretty amazing jobs that I've been incredibly blessed to have. And if I had told myself, oh, you could never get there, I wouldn't have. So it's a bit about keeping an open mind, but it's also just about focusing on the craft of writing itself, on the trade aspect of it, and just continuing to learn, continuing to open your mind up to studying, and just focusing on those aspects more than worrying about the sort of inner dialogue part of it.
Yeah, thank you. So we had a question, someone asked about submittable, and submittable isn't really relevant for freelance writers. It's mostly a platform used by literary journals and publishers who are more focused on creative writing, and they basically use it to manage submissions. So I wouldn't worry about submittable. I think that was from Nancy. We have had a lot of questions about a niche, like how do you find your niche? What is a niche in the first place? We recently had a members only meeting where we spent like half an hour talking about that question. There's a lot that goes into what a niche is. One of the things that I said during that meeting, and I think it was helpful to the members, was a niche isn't just the topic. Say you want to write about yoga. A lot of people think, oh, that's my niche, but that leaves out the other half of the niche, which is who you're writing for. You could be someone who specializes in writing just for yoga magazines, or you could be someone who specializes in writing, doing marketing for yoga studios, and those would be very different paths and different niches, even though it's the same topic. So the niche, really, one way to think about it is the combination of the topic you're writing about and focusing on the area of expertise, and also who you're serving with your writing. It's not just the topic, and it's not just the people, but it's the way they're merged into one.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about niche? Because I know you have a different perspective than I do.
Well, it's something that I've always said is, and it's more of a handy, I guess, mnemonic to keep in mind, is that a niche is sort of a good combination of passion and profitability. And you want to make sure that obviously there is, room to make money in any given niche that you pursue. But also you do want to have some interest in it, because obviously writing about something you have zero interest in is, not going to work. But yeah, I agree with everything that you said. I think another kind of helpful thing is, again, to give yourself time to find it. And don't be afraid to start a little broader and then work your way down. I think that's a better way of establishing a niche, because when you start out, you can choose from anything, and you have to think about your interests, and you have to think about what's out there. And over time, you will find yourself kind of narrowing into a specific, almost sub niche. For example, for a long time, I was writing about marketing, and I eventually, I was writing about all kinds of different topics. And then eventually I kind of got into this groove where I found myself writing about the same, like one or two topics over and over in different ways. and those were almost like sub niches that I had. And it does take a lot of time to just go through that process and find out, okay, what am I writing about? What do I find myself writing about? That is, where does my expertise lie? Where does my passion lie? Where does the market for these things lie? Because if you spend too much time in an unprofitable niche, that can obviously be a problem. But yeah, those are all kinds of things you want to keep in mind when you're pursuing that or refining your niche, I should say.
It seems to me that a lot of new freelance writers really get stuck on this idea of niche, but it's something that I don't think you should worry about too much when you're starting. You just sort of put yourself out there, and more often than not, the niche finds you as opposed to you finding the niche. Like you just keep
Yeah,
looking for it, and eventually it'll show up.
yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, I wouldn't get hung up on it. So if you're brand new to freelance writing, like, and you don't know where to look in order to find like your first couple clients, what are some places to look?
I like I said in the webinar, I definitely think that finding publications in your niche and just spending the time to kind of see different players in that niche, that can be really useful. And I think that's a good, easy way to get started. A lot of it is trial and error. A lot of it is finding, work hotspots like job boards or like social media pages that have writing opportunities on them, and figuring out, okay, take your niche and then find out where the jobs are from there. Look around, take some time, explore the community. I think ultimately probably the best way to get started, if there is one best way, is to just find publications. Search on Google for your niche, and then see what publications are in that space that are accepting content from freelancers. And there are way more than you think. In terms of working with clients, there are so many ways you can look at job boards. You can look at social media sites like Facebook and Reddit. You can network with people on LinkedIn. You can explore your own personal network and see if there are any people in your acquaintances that need writing done. All of these can be really helpful when starting out. And I think maybe that's a bigger takeaway: is don't limit yourself to just one avenue of finding work. You keep your options open, keep your avenues open, and sooner or later you will find sort of a workflow that works for you. That's something that I talk about a lot in the No BS course, which is also a part of the membership. But yeah, that's the basic distilled version of that. Yeah.
I think a lot of writers, they get frustrated because the very first couple of opportunities they find are easy to find. And if it's an easy to find opportunity, it means everyone else is looking there too. So that's part of why, like, it does take time, is you want to find your way away from the crowd. These content mills, like, they're designed to just put all of the writers in one room and pit them against each other, which is really unpleasant for the writers. So there are like strategies you can use to get away from the crowd of other writers. I know a number of freelance writers who've found work by sending pitches to companies hiring a traditional for a traditional job, saying, "Hey, I can do the same work as a freelancer." That's just one strategy. You can also, like, just network within a community. If you become part of a community within your niche, just let people know you're a writer. Often that will result in a client.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked more as an editor, but in my work as a freelancer, it's mostly come through networking, just letting people know I have a service and I'm good at providing the service, and people come to me with jobs. And really, networking is the best way to get the best clients and the best paying jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me open my notes. They somehow disappeared. Barbara McLennan asked, I have a blog that gets 60 or so clicks every day. Can this be turned into making money? I probably am the one who should answer this question, because I run a number of websites, or I help run a number of websites that have become very profitable and successful. Freedom with Writing, Authors Publish. I work on Writing Launch. And if that's something you're interested in doing, it's a very different path than freelance writing. You're going to be doing a lot of like marketing. You're going to need to know the technology. And it can be something you can make a living from. I did put together a course for Writing Launch members that outlines like a framework for building a successful business. It is not the same as being a writer, even though being a writer can be like a core part of that. So there's a lot of like it is more, even more than freelance writing, more about running a business than it is about just writing. Ian, I think we'd had a couple of slides put together about the Writing Launch membership.
We do.
I know a number of people have expressed interest in that. Should we pull that up, talk about that a little bit? And we also have a free gift I think you're going to learn about when we talk about that. So, and after that, we'll answer a few more questions.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because I've been seeing some questions about what all the membership includes, and so here's sort of a breakdown of everything that you'll get with the membership, and there is actually other stuff besides this, but this is just sort of the core of what we offer. One of probably the biggest thing that you'll get is immediate access to all of our courses, including our highly acclaimed No BS course on freelance writing. And we estimated this at around $977. We have, 6 or 7 courses that are all quite long, very in depth, and of course, professional knowledge. And these courses elsewhere, if you were to buy them separately, would cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And you get immediate access to all those courses. You also get personal feedback and coaching from me personally. We have unlimited email coaching, and you'll also get different forms of personal feedback and, responding to homework assignments or things of that nature. And, a coaching session would work out to about $100 per session. That's also included in the membership. We also have the paid publishers database, which I mentioned in the webinar, which is about a $50 value, which is, incredible even for that. It probably should cost more, but that's just what we're estimating it at, where you get, almost 2,000 publications with instant access to all of the writers' guidelines, information about how much they pay, information about the publication itself, all of that right at your fingertips. You'll also get the live Zoom sessions. Like I said, the value for those is around $100 each. They're usually about an hour long. And of course, you get direct interaction with myself and often Jacob. And, you get your questions answered. You get to network with other writers. You get to learn so much real world experience. Or real world knowledge, I should say. We also have an exclusive video library of supplementary content where you get things like exclusive workshops, master classes on things like building a portfolio and how to set rates, how to know how much to charge, a variety of different topics, and that's around a $500 value. And so the total cost of this would be easily over $1,730. And our fee for all of that is just $47 per month. And you get instant access to all of this. And we really, really think that it's the best deal that you can get for this kind of material. We haven't seen anyone come close to this. And, for how much we offer and how much it would normally cost, it's just an insane value. And so that is, an ongoing monthly subscription for $47 each month, which is, as you can see, far less than the $1,700 or more you would pay for that altogether. And if you would like to get a free month, we are offering that. And you can sign up now for that. You can head to our website and sign up right now for it. Or you probably got a link in the email to sign up for that. And it's no strings attached. You can cancel before then if you want. But if you want to stay on and continue being a member, you can certainly do so. But either way, we're opening it up to everybody to get a full 30 days of Writing Launch for free. And that means you can take any of the courses you want. You can look at the publisher's database. You get all those benefits that I mentioned. You can attend the Zoom sessions. You can look at the video library, all of that, and more. There's stuff that I didn't even get the time to mention. There's just so much packed into that. But all of that can be yours for free for the next month just by signing up. So if that's something you're interested in, we would love to have you in the community. And you can just head to our website and sign up. And again, you can cancel if you want to before the month is up. No strings attached, no commitments. But if you'd like to stay on, of course, we'd love to have you. So hopefully, in these still hard times of going on with the pandemic and a lot of people are kind of tight on cash. We hope this can help some people get a leg up and hopefully build their career. So, yeah.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, so like you said, anyone who wants to enroll, you can enroll for free right now. Just go to our website. I put a link in the chat, and you can get a month for free. And Ian and I are going to be working really hard over the next month to help everyone launch their freelance writing careers. And after that, we want to just continuously provide as much value as we can to our members. We to help you succeed in whatever way that you want to succeed as a writer. And yeah, we work really hard to do that. If anyone else has any more questions, we have a couple more minutes. We could maybe get to another question or two.
Mm-hmm.
I think someone previously had asked about what it means to be a ghostwriter, Ian, and I know that you've written as a freelancer as a ghostwriter. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. In a nutshell, it's basically writing for someone else. Writing work that's published under someone else's name, or it can be just writing for maybe a company without your name attached to it. But in both cases, your name is not attached to it. And I think some people they kind of get confused by it, because I think for some people, ghostwriting is a means to kind of build authority they wouldn't otherwise have. When I've done ghostwriting, I always make sure that the person who's publishing it already has that knowledge. I want to make sure that whoever I'm writing for, whether it's an individual or a company, would be capable of producing that content on their own. Usually it's just a time-saving effort. When it comes to companies that are looking to expand, they want to put out content that helps people, that is in their wheelhouse, and they just hire freelancers to do that. And of course, they want it under their brands. So people come to them and see them as an expert, and it can really be a lucrative career. I've done a lot of ghostwriting. It's really it's more approachable than you think, and there are quite a few opportunities, and they tend to pay a little bit more because companies and people are willing to pay for that service. And they understand that your name is not going to be attached to it. You're not going to be able to show it in a portfolio, so they're able to and willing to compensate for that. And yeah, I mean, there are so many various ghostwriting opportunities. If that's something that interests you, I think you should definitely check it out, and maybe even check it out if you don't think that it would be your thing, or maybe at least try it out. Because like I said, it can be pretty lucrative. And if you're not worried about getting those pieces in your portfolio, which, like I said, is not really what your focus should be anyway, it can be a really good way to get consistent jobs, because a lot of ghostwriting opportunities are longer term. I've been working with one client for, the last 4 years or maybe longer, doing ghostwriting for him, and in various, people as well. And it's pretty lucrative, and it's the kind of thing that I would encourage you to check out and just see if you're interested in.
Thank you. So we had a couple of people talk about social media, or whether or not they have a website or a social media presence. And do you need a social media presence? Like, what role does that play?
You absolutely don't need one. In terms of work, like not including personal accounts, the only work social media that I have is, I think I have LinkedIn, and I've never used it. It's just never been one of those sources for me of networking or whatever. I think it's this is one of the matters where it seems like that's what you should do. And I think it's because everything today is so social media centric. It seems like everything is happening there. But when it comes to writing, most of the connections that you'll build, at least the important ones, happen away from that. They'll happen, via email, or via someone introducing you to a client, or, through a phone call, or, things like that. They usually all happen away from social media. And really, social media, and I talk about this in the NBS course, it can just be a distraction, because everyone else is on social media. There are so many writers chomping at the bit to find jobs on like Facebook or whatever. And in addition to the fact that there aren't that many jobs on social media, or at least there are fewer than you might think, there's just so much competition for that. And so it's a way of, as Jacob said, kind of going away from where everyone else is, because that's ideally what you want to do. As far as having a website, there are kind of two schools of thought on that. And it really depends on your goals, because there are some writers who have built a website and that's how they pull in clients, and they have sort of a lead generation strategy built around that. And that can be one approach if you want to take that. If that's not your approach, I don't think that a website is necessary. I mean, it can be useful to host a portfolio, but there are free portfolio sites out there. And we actually have a course on building a writer's website if that's something you're interested in. I think generally for most people, it's not the most necessary thing, but it really does depend on your goals and whether you want to put in, the work and make that a part of your strategy to pull in clients through your website and, do a little bit of marketing, a little bit of advertising, all that stuff.
Yeah. Somebody did mention LinkedIn in the chat and how they find a lot of work from LinkedIn. And I think they're probably actually right. And one of the things is LinkedIn is not like the other social media sites where it seems, my experience with LinkedIn is it's a lot more about actual people. And like, it seems so much more real. Like you can make genuine connections, and it's maybe the exception to the rule in terms of social media.
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's for me, I've never put the kind of the time or the effort into networking on LinkedIn, and just for the types of jobs that I was looking for, they weren't on there. But I've heard a lot from writers who have had a lot of success with it, and there are different networking strategies you can use, and it seems like a really good gold mine for some people. It's just going to be the type of thing where you're going to have to try it out and see whether it works for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, that's wonderful. But yeah, it's very much open, more so than like, Facebook or Twitter, to getting people to kind of see, your value, I guess, because on a platform like Twitter or something like that, it can just, you can kind of get lost in the crowd. And on LinkedIn, it is a little bit easier. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Someone asked, they had some journalism experience years ago, and now they want to break into the writing field again. Like, what do you recommend for people who want to get back into the game? How do they start out?
It kind of depends on the previous experience you had. For example, in this case, if you have journalism experience, things are going to be a little bit different, because journalism, at least as it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, really doesn't exist in the same capacity anymore, at least not largely. And that's just because the market of writing in general has shifted so broadly. In the past, even just 5 years, there have been so many publications and companies who have opened themselves up to different freelancers from all around the world. And you no longer need to be like, a well-known journalist, or you no longer need to work for, some company that is sort of in that field. You can just be one person writing for all these companies, and just being able to do what writers in the past couldn't. So I think kind of surveying the landscape in general is really important, and getting an idea of what writers are doing now, where I guess the successful writers are, but also just where, like, different publications, just the general feel of things. And then also kind of brushing up your knowledge. And a lot of this we address in the NoBS course, which is a great course to take if you are getting back into things. Because it kind of refreshes you on everything that's happening, how writers are making a living today, how they're finding work, just how they're operating in general. And really just getting some familiarity with that is going to be pretty much the whole battle. And then just supplementing that with your own experience and kind of giving it, like I said in the webinar, giving it a little bit of time to settle and, for you to get acclimated to that.
I also want to add that on Tuesday, I think at 2 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to be having a members-only webinar, Zoom meeting, a members-only Zoom meeting next Tuesday. And it's going to be all about what to do if you don't have a portfolio, or if your portfolio isn't good enough. And I think also, like, getting back into the game or just getting launched, we're going to go into that. And so that'll be a way to talk to us face to face for those of you who are interested. And you can attend for free if you join with the free month of membership, which I hope those of you who are interested are going to do, because we're going to be working hard to help all of you succeed with your freelance writing careers. So I think we've actually gone over time. Um, Thank you, everybody, for attending today. And yeah, if you want to have a free month of membership and writing launch with all of these valuable resources we have, personal feedback from Ian, just interaction with us, we're going to work really hard to get your writing career launched. And you can do that in the next month. Just work hard and start getting yourself out there. So I hope for those of you who are interested, you can join us. I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time. And thank you very much. Ian, is there anything else you want to say before we say goodbye to the audience?
Yeah, first of all, just thank you for watching, whether you're watching now live or in the replay. We love holding these webinars, and it really means a lot that there are enough people interested in, sitting through a longer presentation and hopefully taking that knowledge away. So thank you for joining us. And as Jacob said, we would love to have you in the community, even if it's only for a month. If that's all you can afford right now, no big deal at all. That's the whole reason we're doing this. Of course, if you want to stay around, we would love that as well. I'm excited for the near future of writing launch. And, we've made a lot of changes lately to hopefully increase engagement and sort of help people on a more personal level. And I'm just really excited to hopefully be able to help a lot of you who are watching now. So even if you just want to sign up for the month, please go ahead and do so. And we'd love to have you in the community.
Yeah, maybe we can meet you in a Zoom meeting before too long. They've been around 10 to 20 people in them, and it's been like a nice size so we can really get to know people. We've been using breakout rooms, so even if there's more than like 10 people, you'll be able to meet people one-on-one a little bit in the Zoom meetings. Zoom is really incredible because it makes it so much more like a traditional classroom experience where you can be part of a community, you can get to know other people, and you can have that real interaction. So that's been really, really great. And I think it's surprised me at how technology has made these things possible. So I hope we can get to know you there before too long. So thank you, everybody. I hope to meet you soon.